Hello everyone, and welcome to this video where we're going to be defining and then exploring ways that we can measure quality, or at least certain aspects of quality. So the first thing that we need to do really is to understand what we mean by quality itself. So the word quality is quite a commonly used word in everyday English, and we often mean quality to identify products or services which we think are high-end or luxurious. So we can talk about a quality car. We generally mean a high-end or luxury car. Quality handbag, again, would mean a luxurious or desirable handbag. We use it in quite an inexact sense. When it comes to the business disciplines, particularly operations management, we have a quite different understanding of quality. This is still a broad sense. It's not an exact term, but it does have significant differences to how we would use quality in everyday English. So the two major ways we use quality are to identify a product or service which is fit for purpose. So it performs as intended. It fulfills the value that it was designed to fulfill. Alternatively, it could be a product or service which meets the design specification, so it conforms to the specification that's been developed for it. So you can see with this definition of quality, it doesn't have anything to do with being high-end or luxurious. A cheap Bic pen which costs 50 pence to purchase and maybe costs 30 pence to manufacture can be an absolutely quality product if it's fit for purpose. So if it makes the customer happy in the sense that it allows the customer to write as intended, so it performs as intended, or if it meets design specification. So Bic pens are generally not designed to last for 30 years. They're generally not designed to produce a certain thickness of ink, but if it performs as intended, or if it conforms to the specification it's been designed to, then it's still a quality pen. So products up and down the market spectrum can all be quality products or quality services, as long as they fulfill these two key criteria. We have alternative understandings of quality as well. So one which is particularly customer centric identifies that a product is quality if it satisfies the customer needs. So here quality is not being defined from the design standpoint, from the standpoint of the operation that produces it, but rather from the standpoint of the consumer. If the consumer or the customer is happy with the product or service, if it satisfies their needs in a meaningful sense, then it is a quality product or service. And lastly, the absence of defects. This focuses on the production of the product or service, and if the product or service is able to be produced with either a minimum of defects or an absence of defects, then it's said to be a quality product or service. That is a very quick run through of different ways of defining quality. You will find that there is quite a bit of academic debate and discussion on this topic, but that does allow us to go on and look at our second question, which is really, how do we measure quality? So if we've identified quality as either performance as intended or as conformance to specification, we still want to understand how we can break quality down and measure different aspects of quality. So we have 6 major aspects here. Some of them may be more important for other products than other products. Some of them may not actually be applicable at all. But broadly speaking, we'll have 6 different aspects of quality that we want to focus on. So we can go through them one by one to try and develop our understanding. If the product or service doesn't fulfill its function well, then that's clearly a quality problem. So if you have a pen which doesn't produce ink in a way that would be deemed satisfactory, then it's really failed to provide the required functionality. This isn't necessarily a yes-no aspect either. In certain cases it may well be. So if you have a spade, for example, generally speaking, either a spade has the functionality of a spade if it's shaped a certain way and has the required strength, or it doesn't fulfill the functionality of a spade. It doesn't have the required shape or the required strength. But in many cases, functionality may be measured along a sliding scale. You can have a car that gets you from A to B well, or you can have a car that gets you to A to B sporadically, or in a way that doesn't really deliver the maximum possible value. So it can either be a category or it can be a sliding scale. The next aspect of quality we want to understand is the appearance. And now this will again really differ highly depending on the kind of market segment or even the kind of product or service that you're examining. But appearance is generally the aesthetics of the product or service. So it can be the look, the feel, sound, smell, anything which is involved in the aesthetic appeal of the product or service itself. So for a pen, it can be the look of the pen, the weight of a pen may be particularly important for the aesthetics of that particular product category. For a bag or a coat, it may be as well as the weight and the feel of it. It may be the look of it, the materials involved, and even the smell of the coat or the bag. So they will differ considerably, but generally speaking, aesthetics does measure into quality. And you may say that aesthetics is subjective rather than objective, but remember our definitions of quality here. So if we have a clear design specification for, let's say, the coat, so we know how the coat should be designed, how it should be produced, and how it should look and therefore and feel, then we can judge whether it meets our quality requirements by judging how well the aesthetic appeal and the appearance matches the design of the coat itself. And in some cases we may not have a precise design, but we may have a clear performance indication of how the product or service should, or usually product in this case, how it should feel or sound. So even though it's subjective in terms of what is good aesthetics or bad aesthetics, we still usually have some kind of either performance indication or we have some kind of design specification. So we absolutely do need to consider this as part of our quality overall. Now, the next two aspects of quality, we need to distinguish between them because they can often easily be mixed together, but we have reliability and durability as distinctly different aspects. Reliability we're understanding as the consistency of the product or service performance over time. So if your product is designed to perform over a 10-year span, then how consistent is the performance over that 10-year span? Is the performance largely the same? Is the performance meeting the criteria that you've set out? Or does it tend to vary as time goes on or degrade as time goes on? That's going to be our understanding of reliability. The length of time itself is not particularly important for reliability, only the length of time as specified. So if your product is designed to last for just 6 months, but its performance is absolutely consistent over those 6 months, then that would still be a very high quality product. If your product is designed to last over 20 years, but consistency of performance is already achieved for, let's say, 15 of those years, and that's not as high quality in terms of reliability, even though it's lasted for 15 years. So whatever time span has been identified is a consistency of performance within that time span, which is key. Durability, on the other hand, is looking at the total useful life of the product or service itself. So a product is durable if it has a significantly long useful life, even if there is a degree of variance in performance, and it's a product is not durable if it has a significantly short total useful life. So here we're not so interested in the actual performance of the product or service, but rather the total lifespan of the product or service itself. Our next aspect of quality is worth spending a bit of time on because it is quite interesting. So recovery is how easy it is to actually fix or resolve any problems which arise with the product or service. So this is something which is becoming increasingly important or increasingly visible when it comes to modern day consumer electronics. So the recovery, the ability with which we can actually rectify or resolve problems that arise with, say, a smartphone or a laptop is very much decreasing over time, and is given rise to the right to repair movement, amongst other consumer reactions. And it is here that we can very much see the interaction between different aspects of quality and how sometimes they are inversely connected. So if we consider a modern day smartphone, it has obviously a high-end smartphone would have a vast range of functionality, and it tends to have great stress on the appearance, on the aesthetic appeal of the product itself. So when it comes to modern day smartphones, this means being constructed primarily from glass, so the front and back of the phone will typically be constructed from glass. Although it is hardened glass, it is still prone to cracking and smashing, so that would decrease the reliability as well as the overall durability of the phone. So the overall expected lifespan of the phone does reduce, but also the thinness of the phone ranks highly on appearance. So a thin smartphone will tend to be one that's considered to be aesthetically pleasing, but that poses significant issues with recovery. That means typically the front of the phone, the glass itself, the digitizer, the display panel, all of these will be bonded together to have the thinnest phone possible, but it means then recovery takes a substantial hit. If you crack the front of the phone, then the digitizer and the panel usually also have to be replaced. If there's an issue with the digitizer and touch input is not responding, then again you have to replace the entire front of the phone, since all the components are bonded together to make them as thin as possible. Similarly, recovery of the smartphone battery becomes more difficult if the battery is sealed in, so it's not easily user replaceable. So if you consider an old-fashioned Nokia NUN smartphone with a user replaceable battery, if there were battery life issues, this could be rectified very simply by opening the back of the phone, which is designed to be opened by the consumer, and to replace the battery with a replacement battery, with a new battery. And then you could consider that problem to be resolved. Whereas if we're going for a very aesthetically pleasing phone, the back will typically not be user openable and the battery will not be user replaceable. So this will increase the aesthetic appeal of the phone, but have significant implications for the recovery of issues. So we can see here there is an interplay between the different aspects or dimensions of quality, and when it comes to modern electronics or consumer electronics, this is something which has got quite a lot of debate at the moment. So if you're interested, I would absolutely encourage you to Google right to repair movements, particularly in America, which deal with a host of legal issues as well as design issues, as well as iFixit, an interesting resource online that gives distinct repairability scores to individual consumer gadgets and electronics as well. Our last dimension of quality relates pretty much specifically to services. So we've been using product service interchangeably, not least because services which are pure services still have an aspect of product quality to them. So if you consider a hairdressers, you don't actually walk away with anything tangible, but still we are concerned about aesthetics and reliability of equipment and furnishings. So there are still product aspects, but contact is pretty much specifically relating to services. So this is the actual nature of the person-to-person contact that takes place. This is a fairly complex area to measure because it really does depend on gaps, and we have a gaps model. So looking at the gap between customer expectation and customer perception is usually the key one. But understanding the quality of the person-to-person contact, the nature of the person-to-person contact, really does help us understand the quality of service that's being delivered. So what kind of contact do we expect? So when we go to McDonald's to buy a burger, do we really expect the person-to-person contact to involve meaningful conversation about our emotional state and our mood, or do we just expect them to ask if we want extra fries or to make it a large meal? Whereas if you were to go to a therapist to engage in a service, the nature of that person-to-person contact is going to be significantly different. So we have to understand the context in which the contact is taking place, what the customer expectations are, as well as the customer perceptions. But it's something that we really can't ignore if what we're considering, if the quality that we're trying to measure involves either a service aspect or is the quality of a service. To understand more about this, you would want to dig into ServQual, which is a dominant paradigm for understanding and measuring service quality in particular.